Yes, praise be to Allah. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir.
How
Good to
are
see
you?
you.
Yes, you look great. I was just, oh man, it's amazing. And I was asking Allah, what color tie should I wear? And I was gonna put on a beige tie, and I was like, I didn't feel his spirit. I was like, oh no, that's not beige. So then I looked and I saw the red one, and I said, the red one, and then I felt his spirit. And look what you got on, man. See that? Same colors, man. I'm telling you, God is with us. Lord
Mm,
have mercy. This is deep. I was looking at the red, but you got on blue too. That's
yeah, 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 yeah.
wow. Yeah, you can't make this up. This is what makes the Nation of Islam so, oh man, its words can't describe this. This happens frequently in the mosque. I'm gonna tell you, for those who are watching, of course, we're gonna be recording and editing this later. But for those that are watching, this happens all the time in the nation. People become color coordinated without instructions from anybody. I remember one time I was at Mosque number 7, and the lieutenants were all dressed in black t-shirts in unison, right? Now, at the time, I wasn't a lieutenant, but I was on my way up. And then I came with a black sweatshirt with Farrakhan all over it. And everybody's like, look at brother with his shirt. And it was black. And they was looking at me like, how did he know to wear black? I mean, it was a law. You need to wear black, and before you know it, I had become a lieutenant. But brothers and sisters, this is a sister, Farmer Courtney. Um, she is our sister in faith, and we're gonna get into something really deep because I have a clip of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaching us on how to respect those who wish to show us respect. We're going to watch that. And of course, we're going to open up in the name of Allah, who appeared in the person of Master Farrakhan Muhammad. And in the greetings of peace comes to in the name, in the words of our Arabic ancestors, or I would say original ancestors, who spoke Arabic, and they all said assalamu alaikum. That was our first language, brothers and sisters. And I traveled the world and went to Africa and asked dozens of people what was the first language of humanity here in our motherland. And every person I asked, they said Arabic. And I was like, I already knew. I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew, and you knew, and it just reaffirmed my faith. Thank you so much, sister, for being here. And I hope that you had a glorious day. And we're going to go right into our clip of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and then proceed with our meeting.
We cannot lay down.
Yes, sir.
We must get up
Yes, sir.
and go to work.
Yes, sir.
Praises be to Allah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We want to thank the Chicago white people for making it possible for us to obtain the country club, for making it possible for us to get in such position where we can prove ourselves worthy of that position.
Yes, sir.
We thank them. They have did us a great favor.
Yes, sir.
I don't think that we have nothing to do but to honor and thank them for putting us in such position.
Yes, sir.
This is their house. And we're here teaching the truth.
Yes, sir.
They're not objecting to you teaching the truth. As we have white Muslims in America. And lots of them. We have them all over the world.
Yes, sir.
And they recognize and respect you.
That's right.
Go ahead, dear Father. You must recognize and respect them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead and teach, dear Father. You don't disrespect people that is fine to respect you.
Yes, sir.
I remember the last time that I was out to the airport. They let me and my followers get on first. Yes, sir. Now remember that flag is still flying over America.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Honor and respect the man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because he still have his flag. There's much that can be interchanged between them and us. In that way of respect.
Yes, sir.
We don't have to get up to try to make fun of them just because you have ruined yourself. And now you have ruined them.
Yes, sir. That's right, dear Apostle.
Just remember
Yes, sir.
that they show you respect after you have ruined yourself.
Yes, sir, dear Apostle.
Show them respect too.
Yes, sir.
Because when you didn't know yourself, you didn't respect self, nor anyone else.
That's right.
We used to disgrace ourselves and them too.
That's right.
Because we didn't know ourselves.
Yes, sir.
But now we respect ourselves and we respect them.
Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah.
Yes, sir.
You go out there disrespecting the honor of this land. They are known as long as they're in power.
Yes, sir.
I think you will be showing disrespect for the high honor that has been conferred on you.
Yes, sir.
And me by God.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, dear Holy Apostle.
Yes, sir.
Respect everybody. And everybody will respect you.
Right. Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. That was the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I am so grateful that we had that moment. How do you feel after watching that?
Yes, yeah, it was really something to take it all in. Really focus on the words, and yeah, it was real interesting. It brought something up inside of me in relation to this topic that we're going to be speaking on tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Hold that thought as we move on in. Brothers and sisters, supporters of all walks of life, I have great news for you today. As of today, January 26, 2023, we have breached the walls of doubt, and we have now over 1,500 signers to our petition. And what that means is we now have a great opportunity to actually pitch to news stations, and this they can pick us up now locally. So I would like for everybody to send our petition to as many reporters as you can, and just let them know. Say, hey, I saw this petition. I think it's very important and newsworthy. Can you please look into it and contact the coordinators? They're at saviorshelper.com. That would help. Also, we would like you all to take our petition and send it to as many people as possible, at least 2 to 10 people a day on social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter. And the reason why I'm asking you to do this is because silence over justice is basically vain. And right now we believe and we know that time is on our side. Minister Farrakhan, some 10 years ago, was defamed by the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center at 5 years ago and 10 years ago with the ADL, when he mentioned Hitler and said he was great in a wicked way, right? But they tried to twist his words and say that he said great as if he was praising Hitler. Well, what do followers of those who do so, what do they do? If some of us in the audience were here, I'm sure they would say, well, they wear swastikas and they bash windows and they do violent things. But it's been 10 years since that happened, and not one incident has occurred. You don't see me with anything about the SSS or Hitler back here. All you see is peace, right? You don't see any tattoos. You don't see anything that would indicate that I praise Hitler. I am a follower of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan through the guidance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who's at the right hand of Allah. We would never do something like that. Time has erased doubt, and we are the winners. We got the W. The ADL has the L. Take it, and we demand that you remove the name of the minister and the Nation of Islam from all hate group listings. Now, 5 years ago, the Southern Poverty Law Center jumped on board and put us on hate group list based upon what happened. But before I get into what happened, let's get into something else. Let's talk about the fact that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wasn't the first to tell us about our demonic oppressors. It was the Board of Education in my book, because when I went to school, like many of us, we were taught in social studies classes of the atrocities that happened to the indigenous people of the world from the ancestors of those who benefit from what they did. And so, with that said, we learned of the millions of Indians, the so-called Indians who were killed here on the land that we stand on. And then after they did that, they forced their children, as we are taught, to serve the Caucasian version of the Jesus. And then after they did that, they went to Africa to rob, rape, pillage, divide and conquer, and bring back people by way of force to build the civilization here. And then you dare say the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is at fault for telling you something that was on our minds after being taught this in social studies class? Are we going to point the finger at the little man who had a 3rd grade education, ADL? Are we going to do that, SPLC? When we really should be pointing the finger at those who are at the helm, at the Board of Education, for educating us over the actions of those who did such atrocious things? Yes, actions speak louder than words. So if you're going to condemn the Nation of Islam for words, then shouldn't you be condemning the Board of Education for teaching us of the actions, which actually stand as a stronger representation of the truth? Brothers and sisters, this is our argument. Please go and read our petition. Let the world know that the W is with the Nation of Islam. We are the winners. And our supporters, brothers and sisters, we are so grateful. I want to just go into thanking some of you for what you have done, because we know, brothers and sisters, that all you have to do is speak the truth, and falsehood vanishes. Now, before I go into thanking you for what you have done, I want to talk about this guy named Corey Ali Muhammad. He was an aggressor. Something that we don't do. We are taught not to be the aggressor. But for some reason, because he used the word devil, they were easily aligning him with the Nation of Islam. Now, we all know that word could have came out of anybody. That's why we're saying, brothers and sisters, that it's not fair that they point the finger at us. He could have got that from his school teacher. He could have got that from anyone. No proof was ever brought about to prove that he was a follower. He didn't dress like us. He wore kufi. He wore dashiki. He had a beard and a goatee. We don't do that in the Nation of Islam. We don't have anything against it, but that's not our dress code. So it was so many flags to let you know that he was not a member of the Nation of Islam, but yet for some people, like they did to Esau, Jesus, they just went with the notion that was popular, but not the one that you had to really put on a chest plate and step into the AM and say, hey, this is real, and we've got to do something about it. They're doing an injustice here. So it's now time for us who are fearless, the 10,000 fearless, the Nation of Islam, the Panthers, all the peoples of the world who want to stand for righteousness to do something. And that's why we did this petition. I asked Allah, God, for guidance in this, and I felt his spirit and I went with it. And that's all I needed. Brothers and sisters, we stand in the spirit of the Million Man March once again to demand that the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan be removed from all hate group listings. And I want to thank these people, Wes Noel, Connie Muhammad of the prayer line, Public Enemies, okay, the Farger prayer line, excuse me, Public Enemies, Professor Griff, Attorney Elliot B. Passick, who was on last week with us, who wrote a letter to the ADL on our behalf and the Southern Law Center on our behalf in defense of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he is from the Orthodox Jewish community. I want to also thank Timothy and Kathy Cornell, Marlon Muhammad, Royce Muhammad, Khalifa Bird, Tim Walters, and the list goes on of those who have signed and have donated to the change.org website to increase our numbers, to help increase our numbers. Brothers and sisters, with that said, I would like to introduce to you once again, Sister Farmer Courtney, who will address us with her thoughts on our petition, or any comments that you have and testimonies that you feel would inspire people to carry on and sign our petition.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good
Alaikum
evening.
salam. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I have kind of a personal story of humbling about even that context, that label of hate that they try to erroneously and slanderously put on the Nation of Islam. Because I have to say, I was really ignorant to the degree of the attack that was happening, because I was. We had spoken before about just how isolated I was, from the world and from having conversations with people. So I was just deep in study in the lectures and teachings, and because for me it was a grace and mercy from God that anybody would teach me anything. When you were playing the clip of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he was speaking about respecting people and how you come into a new level of respect after you have knowledge of self. For me as a Caucasian, from the teachings, it's a bit of a different vantage point. However, it's still very transformative, because I was not a respecter of my society. I didn't respect America. I was one of those very rebellious young people that, I was really thinking on, did, the ADL, they just point fingers a lot. And I was pondering, do they have anything that's equal, to what the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan, Torchlight for America, that's both a teaching where he was giving us, kind of a stat, of all of the health of all the systems of society ourselves. And it was an offering to all of humanity to just say, let's take a break. And I think I was 17 at the time when that came out, and I didn't know anything about it, but there was no, method of education or spiritual development or anything that could reach me, because I was just so rebellious and disrespectful and like fed up with all the lies.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I was just pondering, like, well, in all this finger pointing and false accusation and whatnot, like, is there anything of good that is, happening for all of humanity from these organizations? Like, from what authority do they even speak? What are the works that they're even doing to have the audacity to make such a judgment, of a man and a people who have the hardest job on earth, given the circumstances that other people have imposed to crush the light of truth from ever reaching the population that the Nation of Islam is set to work to resurrect and save. And I didn't come up with anything positive. I just there is no counter, nothing of equivalence. And so that was what came to my mind, was just how I had never even, studied all the different religions or anything, but it was the Nation of Islam that taught me to be a respecter of self, and, to really clean up my own way of life, and then to go forth respecting other people as I learned. Like, it really changed how I interacted with people. So, I understand the real significance of making this action and taking this, but it seems like they have signed their own fate towards irrelevance with really being invested in this lying type of narrative. Because right now, people who keep saying false things, despite a mountain of evidence that the opposite is really the truth, are making themselves irrelevant. And so I feel like the time is now for them, for their own self-preservation, to admit the wrong and the injustice that has been done with this this label, and to come to terms with that. It never should have been. It's not a correct label and judgment to have on the Nation of Islam. There is no evidence or proof. I mean, the sun has set on this type of tactics. But I had something else come to mind, but I'll pause because I always feel like I talk so much.
Fine. No, you doing fine. I think that you are doing an excellent job at just speaking from the heart. Like, I had a lot of notes and I was planning on reading and looking at the camera and reading and then looking at the camera. I said, no, I can't do that. I was like, I mean, we plan, but Allah has the best plan for us, And you're right. I mean, right now we're looking at a polar opposite situation. And it's got to be shocking to them, because, you put something out there and you expected a response. In the beginning, there was a lot of fear. I remember in the beginning, let me tell you, we lost a lot of contracts as a result of this. For NOI security. I mean, some people could say, well, it went down for financial or business management issues. I've seen all sorts of articles where people made all kinds of comments about things that they really didn't have too much information about, except for what they had from agents that was infiltrating our organization. And yes, there were agents that were infiltrating our organization. I actually caught one myself. As I was on doing NOI security. There was a so-called brother who I was able to see with police officers in the car. 2 cars drove past me and they didn't expect me to be there that early. They came to drop him off. And when I confronted him later, it was really difficult to deal with it because the people in the ranks had fell in love with him, you know, as a brother. So that was a hard thing for me to deal with, having just come in the ranks, having exposed this gentleman, and I saw how Allah just destroyed him. I mean, literally, he caught cancer and all kinds of diseases. He no longer is here. But he was in Carver Bank where we worked, and he was messing with the electronical system, the alarm system and everything. So when everyone would come into work after he was on the night shift, things would be all twisted. And so they would come to us and say, well, what happened to the lighting? How come the lights are all off? And why is this off? And why is that off? And why is that chair over there? And it was the agent in there just doing all kinds of things. And we couldn't deal with it the way those who would deal with it, who were accustomed to dealing with that kind of circumstance, because I sure wasn't. It was a very difficult matter. But at the same time, while we had the infiltration from the government in NOI security, we were dealing with the character defamation and the lies, the Anti-Defamation League, and those who are in cahoots with them were in the media coming against us, putting fear in the people. So with all those elements, it was like a perfect storm. And when you have a new organization or people who are new within an organization that is already established, it's almost like you're reinventing the wheel again, because, if you have a revolving door, you don't learn as much and retain as much information. And we rely on Allah to protect us. And he's doing a fine job at doing that. That's why we're doing this in honor of our God, in honor of the messenger, in honor of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and his national representative, to fight back. Because if you're going to stand there and watch somebody malign Minister Farrakhan and say you're with him, then you're not really with him. And you don't need instructions to fight for your brother. You don't need somebody to sit there and tell you what to do. You feel it in your heart. That's my uncle. Get back, do something, stand up. And that's what the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said. He said, when you see somebody standing up for truth, stand up and back that person. It doesn't matter who it is. If they're standing up for truth, do something. So I implore brothers and sisters who are watching to take heed and follow suit and get with us and sign the petition and do all that you can to help us. Now, there's another thing I just have to add. We're trying to get some billboards in every city. Now, I don't like standing out here asking you for anything. That's why you didn't see me asking for anything in the beginning. But we're at the 31st day. We have 31 days until the 26th of February. We want to get over 2 million in the spirit of the Million Man March to sign the petition by that date, which is Saviours Day. And we want to hand the list over to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as a gift to show him our support, to show him that the nation is going to be okay after the prophesied departure, where he will meet with the most honorable Elijah Muhammad on the wheel again. And if we did this, brothers, and we will, it will put a smile so deep on the minister's face. I can almost picture how much he will feel the love and feel the weight off his shoulders, that the nation will be okay. We need to show him that, brothers and sisters. And this is an idea that I came up with. And by the grace of Allah, I believe he approved. The way our ensemble is right now, myself and Sister Courtney, is another sign of the approval of Allah. I don't know what else to tell you. We have an Orthodox Jewish lawyer, Elliot Pasek, who wrote a letter again to the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center in defense of the minister. We have Public Enemies, Professor Grip, who signed it. We have so many others of astute levels, and average Joe and James who have signed it. Brothers and sisters, you have no choice but to get with us. There will be no bandwagon. Don't come on the bandwagon later, because it starts to get hype and you see an opportunity to get some shine. This is not that type of party. This is Allah's thing. He's in control. And with him and with faith in him, I believe we're going to be extremely successful. I believe we're going to get more than 2 million. I've reached out to so many people, brothers and sisters, and the media, as well as Ben Chavis, who drove the spirit in on the Million Man March so well. Who can forget him? As he said, long live the spirit of the Million Man March. Long live the spirit of the Million Man March, time and time again, and helped assist the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in galvanizing support that went all the way to Japan, brothers and sisters. When I was at the Million Man March, there were people from Japan in ranks with the Japanese flag in ranks supporting the Million Man March. And in that spirit of unity with all walks of life who are in support of our plight, who understand, have sympathizers. We have people who are really, really caring. and want to do something to help, this is one of the ways that you can do it. And I'm glad to be a vehicle to make this, to help make this happen. We also have Brother Fred in the house from Ohio, who recently got his ex. I thank you, sir, for being in the building. You want to unmute and just say a few words?
How are you today, sir?
Praise be to Allah. Assalamu alaikum. Excellent.
Alaikum salam. Good to be here. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to see if you wanted to share some commentary, anything, any buzz that you hearing out there. We just reached 1,500 signers, as I mentioned earlier in our broadcast. So what's going on? How you doing, Fruit?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm just here to listen and to learn today, you know?
Yes, sir. I understand. But we're glad to have you. Glad
Yes,
that you
sir.
are here with us. Sister Courtney, our sister in faith, is in the building. And I was hoping you'd be on with the camera today to see if you would have wore the same colors as we did, because that would have been crazy. Because like what I was saying earlier, we didn't plan this in coordination. I'm telling you, I just invited sister. She came, and we wore the same colors. Now something similar happened last time she was on the show, and this has happened before with other people who have come to the show. I never tell them what to dress like. I'm telling you, in Allah, it's amazing.
You guys look great today.
You wonder why I'm always like tripping over my words. I'm bugging right now. I mean, I'm really like, this is blowing my mind. Like, we did not coordinate this, so brothers and sisters, I love y'all, everybody. Sister Courtney, you said you had another point that you wanted to raise. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. One thing that really came to my heart, it was another humbling experience of really building a glossary of terminology, because to me that was one of the things, when I first heard the different nuances of how the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad would teach, the words that he would say, how he introduced totally different words that just succinctly explained what we were experiencing, tricknology, right? I had never heard that word before.
Right.
And it really explains what's being done. And so as I, think about how different people use different words in different ways. So Caucasians who are seeking like power and control and wanting to limit people's rise and higher consciousness, they use words differently, and impose their meaning on what it is, so like we can read in scriptures that hate is a thought, like an emotion that is, like a very strong reaction, but it can be more like a noun, just like an idea, a thought. Well, Caucasians have a history of that hate is a verb, right? So like that there's that misunderstanding of them always trying to assign meaning, where righteous anger is an acceptable reaction to the presentation of historical facts and trying to solve different problems. That doesn't translate, as we can tell, that we're still able to have this conversation, that the United States of America ever came into its, strength and power, that it was that is not the word and the action. It doesn't mean the same thing for all people. You can, like, indigenous and original people can have a feeling, a thought, an idea, and they're not a violent, homicidal people that immediately acts on that with no impulse control and takes people out. So there's this misalignment of language and the source of meaning of ideas and words, really. And so that really was coming to mind about, when I listened to the different things that the ADL says and things like that. It's a really limited presentation of thought and how to view things. And I know they pretty much lay out that it's economic control, like you were saying, how the security business was impacted. It's very, and as I was listening, especially to that last interview on the Breakfast Club that the head of the ADL gave, I just thought, this sounds like very juvenile language. I was wondering how many adults were even engaging with that kind of propaganda. And then I was thinking, like, this is for the children almost, like this is, it's so simplistic how they're saying it, that they're just kind of like leaping over the critical thinking adults that might be seeing through this, and they're just going right for the babies and the children of like, how can we influence with really simplistic, just like short, non-contextual explanations of just saying, good, bad, control, like just this controlling narrative. And and I was immediately thought of just how much grammar, vocabulary, elevated thought that I've learned from studying from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I have several dictionaries. I'm always looking up words. The importance of context and understanding and making sure that people are on the same page. And I think that that's just really a reason why they seek to block the communication of the frequency of his voice and our dissatisfied hearts and minds of receiving that, and the rise of people who are inspired by that same thing. Like, I was flipping through the Torchlight for America because I thought I was forgetting about Central Time, and I was reading it, and I was just thinking, you don't get advice about like male-female relationships, the like budgeting for governments, and he spans the whole scope of what humanity is really dissatisfied with. And so it's just such a deep fear that people will realize that there's so much more to life than the narrow scope of what we've ever been taught to imagine, like to even allow ourselves to imagine, that that this campaign of love, lies, and warfare is really the best they've got. Like that teaching of technology is really something that if it's a word that people don't quite understand, that's worth a deep study, and it gives a very succinct explanation of to how we're in this news cycle and communication style, and yet nothing is really being proposed that's good. It's always just this is bad and this is terrible, but there's no recipe for how to rise above that. There's no guidance coming from anywhere except for the Nation of Islam, in my experience. And that was why, even though it was such an odd match, people in my life were like, what are you into now? What are you doing? I just thought, like, I'm seeking truth, and they're the people that can, answer the questions, and that's where it's coming from. So I just think that that's why the attack is so great, because it's that they have a lot from their vantage point, like they have so much to lose from people awakening and understanding who they truly are, on the higher level, like people rising to their highest level of humanity, like those who profit off the material aspects of this world. They have so much to lose materially, which always seems to be their focus. They could care less about the moral compass of a nation and the welfare of anyone living in it, as long as they're, doing well materialistically.
Yes, ma'am. My gosh. Wow, you said a lot. And I have to admit that it was a lot of good information, and it's the truth. They are arrogant as hell, and they are insulting our intelligence purposely. It's by design that they use such language. Sit, get up, go, stay, eat, stop eating. Short phrases, commanding, like belittling and condescending. And it's the language of the arrogant, the ego driven, those who have given their life to the dog. When we are supposed to give our life to God, they do the exact opposite. When we and this, brothers and sisters, could not be a punt when the spirit is with God. You see, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has said that he desired to one day speak to the Caucasian people about how they can be born again, and that they have to remove themselves from the mindset of white supremacy. This is what Sister Courtney is talking about. this mindset that says I'm better because of the color of my skin. We didn't dislike the slave masters because of the color of their skin. It was the chains on our necks. It was the whips. It was the restrictions. It was our inability to speak to our own mothers because you dragged her away to another farm. It was in our inability to be with our wives because you dragged her away or dragged me away to another farm. And I say me because I'm in the spirit of my ancestors as I'm speaking. And then there were Caucasians who actually tried to help us. And they were also mutilated and hung and to this day dealing with similar circumstances. And Allah, he covers us. He covers us so well. But you got to give your life to him. You got to turn to him. You have to be renewed again. This is what Esau, who is better known as Jesus today, was talking about when he wanted us to seek the face of God, and he led us to God so that we could find God within ourselves. As the scripture says, ye are God's children of the Most High God. Each individual, each human being has that God quality inside of them. Oh, brothers and sisters, we can do it. We can unite. And if we get together and sign this petition, it would push back all the plans back into the briefing rooms of our oppressors, where they would have to rethink everything. All right, we didn't think this was going to happen, but it did. Well, do we have a contingency? Oh, la, 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 la. And they would have to go into that kind of la, la land while we are just rebuilding and building our nation. Let's just focus on that, brothers and sisters. Let's focus on that. Now, once again, go to saviorshelper.com. That's Saviours, SAVIOURS, helper, HELPER.com, and go ahead and sign the petition. Now, remember I was talking about the billboards that we needed? Well, when we did the Million Man March and subsequent marches, we had to do billboards. And basically, we're going to do a similar thing. So we're asking, brothers and sisters, that if you can make a contribution for our outdoor campaigns, flyers, posters, billboards, that we need ASAP, go to saviorshelp.com, go to the donation button and click Saviors Helper and direct your donations to us. Cash App is $artistic ops, ARTI, artistic ops, OPS. And you go ahead and you could do it that way as well. But make sure you put in the notes that it's for the Saviours Helper petition campaign to help the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. And everyone who has made a donation towards the campaign through change.org, I thank you. So many people have done it, and it is effective. But I would have to say for our ground forces, for those who are on the ground with the flyers and the posters, we need your support in that area. So direct your donation that way so that we can get the billboards done. Thank you so much. And if there's any other comments that we have, we'd like to close out. Anyone else like to say any comments or anything that comes to mind? Okay, with that said, I want to thank everybody for being here. Tune in next week, as we will be doing this again and meeting every Thursday. Our email for media purposes is info@saviorshelper.com. info@saviorshelper.com. If you know anybody in the media, DJs who could play our MP3s, our videos that we have for commercials on cable shows, we can send it to them, but we need you to help us make that connection. So email us your contacts, any leads that you have to help us get this job done. And let's get the 2 million signatures by Saviors Day 2023, where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan will be speaking live from Chicago. And for information about that, go to NOI.org. And with that said, I greet you in the spirit of peace, in the spirit of the Million Man March of Assalamu Alaikum, and peace be unto to all of you. And thank you for being here. Have a blessed night. I'll see y'all around. I'll see you maybe next week. All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Brother Fred.